Have you ever noticed something strange that happens when someone starts saving money for the first time? In the beginning, when the account balance is practically zero, financial life seems to run almost on autopilot. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. The paycheck comes in, some bills get paid, others show up unexpectedly. An unplanned expense appears in the middle of the month, and before you realize it, the money is basically gone. Even so, life goes on. You improvise, adjust something here, push something else there, try to deal with whatever is most urgent, and keep moving forward. This kind of routine is exhausting, but it becomes normal for many people. Because when money is always tight, there isn't much space to think beyond the next problem. But at some point, something different happens. Maybe after a lot of effort, maybe after months of trying to get organized, you finally manage to save some money. It might not be much. Maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000, maybe an amount that took a long time to put together, but it's there sitting in the account. And then something curious happens inside your mind. Instead of feeling only relief, a strange sensation appears, almost a silent anxiety. You start opening the banking app more often than before. You start doing mental calculations without even noticing. You start imagining scenarios that might never even happen. What if an unexpected problem appears? What if I have to use all of this? What if this money suddenly disappears? It's curious, because for years you lived without any savings at all and still managed to keep living. But now that there is something there, your brain starts treating it as something extremely precious, something that needs to be protected. Many people believe they are doing something wrong when they feel this way. The person thinks they should be happy, that they should feel more secure. But in practice, the exact opposite happens. The mind goes into alert mode. And there is a very deep reason why this happens. Our brain has a very strong characteristic called loss aversion. In simple terms, losing something we have already gained usually causes much more pain than the joy of gaining something new. That's why when you start saving money, even if it's a small amount, the focus of your mind changes completely. Before, you were just trying to survive the month. Now you are trying to protect something that took time and effort to build. And this creates a very curious paradox. Having a small amount saved can generate more anxiety than having nothing at all. When you have nothing, the brain is already used to instability. It operates in survival mode. But when there is some savings, the fear of losing it appears. And that fear can be very powerful. Many people spend years stuck exactly at this intermediate point in their financial life. They save a little, use part of it when a problem appears. Try again the next month, move a few steps forward, and then take a few steps back. It feels like financial progress moves in circles. If you have ever felt like you work hard, try to get organized, and still feel like your financial life never moves forward, know that this feeling is much more common than it seems. And it doesn't happen only because of the numbers. It happens because of the way our mind reacts to constant financial pressure. When money is scarce, every decision feels heavy. Every expense needs to be analyzed. Every unexpected situation feels too big. This creates a type of exhaustion that many people don't even fully notice. It's not just the physical exhaustion from work. It's the mental exhaustion of thinking about money all the time. Thinking about the bill that's due tomorrow, thinking about the credit card that's about to close, thinking about the unexpected expense that appeared in the middle of the month. This constant state of alert takes up space inside your mind, and when the mind is busy trying to survive, it can't think about the long term. That's exactly why so many people spend years working hard and still feel like they are always chasing life. It's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of intelligence. Many chimis it as simply because financial life never had space to breathe. And it's exactly at this point that the quiet journey of real financial building begins. In the beginning, it doesn't look like much. There is no dramatic change in life. There is no feeling of wealth. There is only a small decision that starts being repeated many times. Saving something. Maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe a little more when the month allows it. At first, it seems insignificant. It takes a long time to make a difference. And many people give up exactly at this stage because the progress seems far too slow. It feels like all the effort is producing a very small result. But those who keep going begin to notice something interesting happening over time. After a few months, that small habit begins to create a small margin of safety. Maybe it's enough to solve a simple problem without panic. Maybe it's enough to pay for an unexpected repair or cover a slightly more difficult month. And even though it's a small reserve, it creates an invisible change inside the mind. For the first time in that person's financial life, A problem appears and it doesn't create immediate panic. This experience teaches something extremely powerful, something many people never had the chance to feel. It shows that saved money isn't just for accumulating numbers in an account. It's meant to reduce the level of stress in life. Even so, at this stage, there is still a lot of fragility. A bigger problem can consume that reserve quickly, so the brain stays on alert. The person still feels like they are walking on unstable ground. But at the same time, a new idea slowly begins to appear inside the mind. The idea that maybe it's possible to build something bigger over time. This idea changes behavior in an almost imperceptible way. The person begins to observe their own financial habits more carefully. They begin to notice where the money is really going. Small expenses that previously went unnoticed start to attract attention. It's not about cutting everything or depriving yourself of everything. It's about understanding how money circulates in your own life, understanding which decisions help and which ones sabotage progress. Over time, this awareness creates something extremely important: intention. Financial decisions stop being only reactions to problems and begin to become more conscious choices. There is still no great wealth. There is still no great comfort. But there is something that didn't exist before: direction. And when there is direction, time begins to work in your favor. Most people completely underestimate the power of time in financial building. In the beginning, it feels like nothing changes. Months pass and the accumulated amount still seems small. But after a few years, something curious begins to happen. The money starts to grow in a more visible way. Not because something extraordinary happened or because of some stroke of luck, but because small amounts repeated for a long time start forming something meaningful. At this point, another important change appears. The accumulated money begins to generate small returns. Those returns go back into the same assets. And over time, this process starts repeating itself many times. At first, it barely makes a difference, but after a few years, it starts to accelerate. And then many people notice something curious. The feeling of progress changes. Before, it felt like every step required a lot of effort to produce almost nothing. Now it starts to feel like the money itself is helping push the process forward. Even so, there is still an important psychological barrier, because up to a certain point, the accumulated wealth still feels vulnerable. It still feels like something that could disappear if a few things go wrong. And that's exactly why so many stories about financial building mention a specific point where everything starts to change. A point where the accumulated money stops feeling fragile and begins to represent real stability. Many times that point appears around $200,000. Not because it's a magical number or a universal rule, but because for many people, that amount represents a level where the accumulated money begins to create a different feeling inside the mind. At that point, the money stops being only protection against emergencies. It begins to represent time. Time to make better decisions. Time to solve problems calmly. Time to think before acting. If something unexpected happens, the person knows they don't need to panic immediately. There is margin. There is room to breathe. And when there is space, the brain completely changes the way it operates. It leaves survival mode and enters strategy mode. This changes everything, because decisions made in panic are almost always bad. But decisions made calmly have a much greater chance of working. The person begins to see opportunities that once seemed risky. They begin to consider changes that once seemed impossible. Maybe negotiating better at work, maybe changing fields, maybe starting something on the side. All of this becomes possible because there is a financial base supporting those choices. But here's a truth that almost nobody speaks about clearly. Reaching the first $200,000 rarely happens because of a brilliant investment or some secret formula. Most of the time it happens because of something much simpler and at the same time much harder to maintain consistency. For years, saving a little, organizing better, avoiding impulsive decisions, continuing even when progress feels slow. Most people who reached that point didn't do anything extraordinary. They simply did something extremely difficult. They maintained the process long enough. And when that happens, the financial game changes completely. The accumulated money begins to work together with the person. The returns start to have real weight. The growth begins to accelerate as the years pass. But the most important effect doesn't appear only in the bank account. It appears inside the mind. Anxiety begins to decrease. The person realizes they are no longer living at the edge. Problems still happen, but they don't feel like catastrophes. They feel like practical issues that can be solved. And that creates something extremely valuable: mental freedom. Freedom to think, freedom to plan, freedom to make decisions without feeling that constant tightness in the chest. In the end, this was always the real goal of financial building. It's not about showing off. It's not about proving something to other people. It's simply about living without that internal alarm going off all the time. It's about being able to look at a financial problem and calmly think that it is just a matter of organization, not a threat to survival. And all of this begins long before $200,000. It begins the moment someone decides to organize their financial life consciously. No story starts with $200,000. They all start with small decisions repeated for a long time. If you've made it this far, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment the word money so I know you watched until the end.